So welcome. We're on the Daf Yud on top, and we're in Hilchos Chol Moed. The Mishnah said about sewing. So it's up. One second, please. So it said that sewing is permissible for a hedyot. It seems to be talking. Taisa says right here. We're on here already. So Taisa says hedyot kafel kedaka near dafka l'tzorach moed. The Mishnah doesn't say, but Taisa says that if you're allowed to sew, it must be that you need it for the moed, or else there would no reason why Chazal should permit it if there's no necessity. So that's what the place can go, that if you're allowed to sew if you need to. And the Mishnah says only a Maisa Hedyot, only if it's amateur sewing, and that's good if you're an amateur. But the Mishnah says, what do you do if you're a professional? So the Mishnah is going to tell you how a professional should sew and to make sure that it's called the amateur way. On Chol Moed. Everything's Chol Moed.
There's a minute also that the women don't sew on Motzei Shabbos. You ever hear that?
No.
For some reason, sewing is.
Anybody know about a minute not to sew on women not to sew on Motzei Shabbos? Anybody heard such a minhag?
Women sew.
Okay, we don't know about it. If anybody hears about it, please tell us. So the Mishnah says, I hope it hedyot tofek kedaka, that a hedyot, an amateur, is allowed to sew regularly. His regular sewing is a Maisa Hedyot, it's Sorcha Moed, so it's permissible. What's a Hedyot? Now we want to define for us who's a Hedyot, who's called a professional tailor and who's called a Hedyot. So it seems you don't have to be a great tailor, you have to, but there's something in between that's called also a Uman. That's considered professional. So what's considered a Hedyot? And Rabbi Yossi Rab Chanina, seems to be two opinions how to define a Hedyot, that amateur sewer. So the first opinion is that if you cannot take a needle full in one shot, which would mean that the professional, he doesn't sew one stitch at a time. He puts the needle through the thread in and out many times, bunches it up, and then he pulls the needle and 5 stitches at a time, whatever that might be. So if you can't do that, if you can't take a needle full, it's not enough that you can do 1 stitch at a time, 2 stitches at a time, 3 stitches at a time. It has to be that you can do a whole needle full, the length of a needle, and then you pull it and you get all those stitches. If you can't do that, you're not a professional, and you can sew normally. Rabbi Yossi Rab Chanina says if you can't make a straight hem, imra is a hem. Chefes chalukah means like the sfas, the edge of the beged. You want to make a hem, you hem it over, you double it over, and you sew it. If you can't make a straight hem, so you're not a professional, and then you can sew normally. But whatever's your normal. But it says if it's an uman, if he's a professional, he's a professional sewer. He passed the test of these 2 tests, so then he's not allowed to sew normally. He has to dafka make a shinoi, and it says uman machle. That's words of the Mishnah. Uman machle, but a professional sewer should be machle. What does that mean? So it seems I don't get the pshat exactly, because everybody seems to say that it means a dog's teeth. It should be similar to a dog's teeth, and the Gemara says 2 pshatim what that means. Either it means large stitches that you like basting, like you make a large stitch. You don't make regular small stitches. You make big stitches, and that's permissible. And they say the reason why it's called machle is because a dog's teeth are far from each other. So that's another way of saying making wide stitches. That's called mafsia. Which also means teeth of a dog. So I don't see in the words of the Gemara, both of them mean, the first that also means, this is what Rashi says. Rashi says, they say Rashi here is not the real Rashi, by the way, just like in Tainus, it wasn't the real Rashi. They say this is also not the real Rashi. They have Rashi Ksav Yad in a different text. But here the regular Rashi, they say, is also Choshev Rishon, it seems, but he's not the original Rashi. So Rashi says also, even in the first prat, he says the reason why it's called machlef is because it's similar to a dog's teeth, which are far from each other. But then I don't understand why the Gemara says in the second shot, shine kalbasa just means dog's teeth. How are you supposed to know what the difference is? But they say the first prat is saying to make wide stitches, and the second one says to make zigzag. Shine kalbasa, that the same way that a dog's teeth, you'll have fangs, whatever it might be, up and down. That's another way of saying a zigzag. So those are the 2 pshatim, and the Meforshim say we shachoshes for both pshatim, and therefore, if a uman wants to sew on Chol Moed, he should do both. Make big zigzag stitches. That'll be permissible to show you not the regular way that he sews. That's the issue about sewing. It says if it's a Sorcha Moed, you're allowed to sew a Maisa Hedyot. And what does an uman do? He goes out of his way to make it look amateurish. The next thing to spoke about was a bed, and we had the picture Leib Yaakov put on last time. If you want to put it on again, if it's available, so that'll help us again. That the question is about you have a bed frame and you want to put on the ropes that are going to be warp and weft. There's going to be both directions, vertical and horizontal, in order to be able to put the mattress on top of that. So that's the question. What it says in the Mishnah. We'll see that's not so simple. We'll see the Gemara now. And Masargin is mitos is what the Tanakhama says. You even allowed to be Masareg, whatever that word means, Masargin. And Rabbi Yossi said only Mematrin. He was Machmir. Some even have in the mission the word only Mematrin or something. You only allowed to be Mematrin. I forgot exactly how it goes, but Mematrin means thank you, Levi Yaakov. Here it is, and you see the bed frame. And now the way to hold the mattress up is going to be by having crisscrossing ropes, and that's going to be called chassis. Chassis is the long ones, the vertical ones, and the ones that go in and out is going to be the Erev. That's going to be the weft. And we're going to see now if that's the end result. That'll be the best thing. That's what you do on the weekday. And the Gemara will talk about what does the Mishnah mean. What are you allowed to do? Thank you, Levi Yaakov. So there's a machlokes in the Mishnah. If we scroll back to the Mishnah, so I was going to say, let's see if we can get it back to the Mishnah. Did I go too far? Where am I going? I'm sorry. Let's find the Mishnah a second. So we're going back to Chesam at Beis, and over there said Masagan and mitos. Okay, take that away. So Rabbi Yossi is the Chumrah, and he says that not like Tanakhama. Tanakhama says that you would be allowed to even be Masareg, whatever that means. And Rabbi Yossi says no, only Mematchen. He's more Machmir. You can't do the whole thing. And now we're going to see the Gemara of what all that means. So we're pages ahead. Here we are. Okay. So my Masargin, my Mematchen. What do they mean? He says it's a machlokes. Rabbi said it's a machlokes. These two Amaram. Each Amora, whatever he holds, he said it in the name of Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan. Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan are not arguing, but there's machlokes what they said. Rabbi said one shot. Rabbi said another shot. So we don't know who says what, but we're just going to have the opinions alone. The one who says, the Tanakhama says you're allowed to be Masari, that's like Levi Yaakov's picture, that you're allowed to do both the warp and the weft, both the horizontal and the vertical, both of them. And the Rabbi Yossi says only Mematchen, he holds only one direction, not the other. You only can make the vertical ones, let's say, not the horizontal ones. You're not going to be able to make both directions, only one direction. And that's the machlokes. That's how one of the Amoram explained the machlokes in the Mishnah. The Chad Amar and the other one was more machmir and said everyone goes down a notch. Masargin means shti below erev, and Mematchen means shemay rofa mematcho. That nobody allows you to make both the crisscross. The one who's makel says Masargin means that you can make one direction. Means shti below erev. What the first one said that was the chumrah. He says that's even the kula. That even the one who's lenient only allows you to make one direction. Shti below erev, only the warp without the weft. And the one who says Mematchen, Rabbi Yossi says only Mematchen. He says you can't even do that. All you can do is if it's already set up, the bed is framed, has already the ropes, but it got loose, that you're allowed to stretch it out. You can make it taut. You're not allowed to put any ropes. Not neither machlokes. How to learn? Pshat machlokes means there's machlokes in the Mishnah. Tanakhama says Masargin. Rabbi Yossi says only Mematchen. According to the first opinion, whoever that is, he says Masargin means that you're allowed to make both directions, and Rabbi Yossi says Mematchen only one direction. And the other way to learn the Mishnah is that even the one who's lenient says Masargin only means one direction. And Rabbi Yossi says only Mematchen, it means you can't do anything. Only if it's already set up, then you're allowed to tighten it. But you can't add on new ropes, not even one direction.
Right. So basically, if it's broken, you can use it.
If you don't have that, if you don't have, right.
Right.
If there's nothing there, you can't do anything.
One side is meaningless.
Right. Okay, good. So that's what comes out. Tomorrow's the kasha that the Gemara wants to prove that. Let's see which way they're going to prove. I forgot the offhand over here. Is that true? Even the one who is lenient, the first opinion says Masargin. Whatever the Masargin means, you have two choices now. Either Masargin means you can make both directions, or Masargin means you only can make one direction. But I said even the lenient one is masking. You can't make ropes. You can't make the ropes. If you have ropes, then you question how much you can put on, but you can't make the ropes. So the Gemara is asking that it's mashma that the only thing you can find that you can't do is making the ropes. If you hold like the second opinion, the red opinion over here, that second Masargin means only you can make. So you should have said you can't. Not the second one. We're going now even according to the lenient opinion. There's a Masargin, there's a Mematchen. Even the one who says Masargin, but you can't make the ropes. That's a big jump to say you can't make the ropes. If you hold that you can make both directions, then you can say, but you can't make the ropes. But if you hold that you can't even make two directions, only can make one direction. So it's too much of a jump to say you're not allowed to make the ropes, you're not allowed to even make two directions. That's the most kasha. So it's a kasha on this. I'll just try to highlight it. It's a kasha on this one. The one who says Masargin means shesti below erev,
Right. So, what is
So
it?
then he shouldn't say that you're not allowed to make the ropes. You're not allowed to even do shtiva erev. You can't even do two direction. All you can do is one direction. That's a Morris kasha. There's a Bryce that says that everyone holds you can't make the ropes. Bishlam mandam masagin means shtiva erev and mamatchin means shtiva lo erev. Fine, but the one who says masagin means you can make both. You can make both directions. So then the Bryce says, but you can't make the ropes. That even though you can make both directions, but you can't make the ropes. Only if you have the ropes, you can make both directions. And but the main point is, what does Masagin means? If you say Masagin means only can make one direction, so that's the way to say it, that you can't make the ropes. He should have said you can't even make two directions. If he holds you can't even make two directions, only one direction, so he doesn't have to say you can't make the ropes. You can't even do, if you have the ropes, you can't even make two directions. So that's the kasha on the one who says Masagin means shtiva lo erev. So the Gemara now is gonna retract. He's right. You're right. You proved beyond. Is that true? Is the Gemara going to retract? No, the Gemara doesn't retract yet. The Gemara just says kasha. The Gemara doesn't give in yet. Nice kasha, but not yet a wipeout. It doesn't knock it down yet. It's not a knockout punch. It just he knocked him down, but not down, not all the way down. But now the Gemara is going to have a knockout kasha. Does anybody translate that the word Musagin means only one direction, not two directions? Means we're still attacking the same on the Yoma. This one who says that Musagin means shtiva lo erev. Is anybody that says Musagin means only one direction? I'll bring you a proof that the word Musagin has to mean both directions. Tanan, this is a Mishnah I think in Kalim. Rabbi Romer Hamita Misha Yisrog Bash Lo Shabbatim. Over there, it's talking about what's considered a bed as far as being a couple tuma, that it's considered a good use for bed. It says. And it says that when you have three boxes, Meshayis, how does it go here? Meshayisrogba, here's the word Mesargin, Meshayisrogba, Shlosha Batim. A bias, by definition, means that it's a box. So it means when you have three boxes. So what's called a bed? When you have the warp, you have one direction, the vertical strings, and you put the horizontal strings in a way that you form three boxes, like we saw in the Yaakov's picture, that each one is considered a box. You have boxes. So by definition, you see that the word Yisrog means that you have both directions. You don't only have one direction. If you only have one direction, you don't have any boxes at all. So that's a knockout kasha. So now the Gemara is going to give in. You're right that nobody is going to say that Masagin means shtiva lo erev. Masagin surely means shtiva erev. So we're going to take this out. Might as well take it out already here. We're going to erase this. There's nobody that says that. That's it. That's what we do. And they're not even arguing in the first part. Masagin surely means shtiva erev. That's true. It's true. The only focus is going to be what does Mamatchan mean? That's what the Gemara is. So the Gemara retracted. You're right. Here goes the Gemara now. Hella ki asa Ravin Amar the Masakin Kuram all the the shtiva. Everybody knows that Masakin means both directions. So the Tanna Kama mission that says you could be Masakin means you're allowed to take both directions. You can take if you have ropes already. If you don't have ropes, so then you can't make the ropes. But if you have ropes, you're allowed to make both directions. You make the vertical and the horizontal. But the Machlokes says, what does Abyosi says? Abyosi says, Mamatchan, what does he hold? That's what a Machlokes is. According to the Tanna Kama, right? You can make batim. You can make the horizontal ropes, and then you put the vertical ones. You weave it back and forth, and you get the. That's what Tanna Kama says. But the Abyosi's Machmer says only Mamatchan. What does he hold? You allowed to do? That's a Machlokes. So some master of a Mamatchan means shtiva lo erev. It's the same as before. Just we erased the Machlokes and the Tanna Kama. They're not arguing what the Tanna Kama holds. They're just arguing what does Mamatchan means. This part stays the same as before. Just we thought arguing also what the Tanna Kama holds. Now we're saying no. Tanna Kama surely holds that it means shtiva erev. You're allowed to make both. The Sargin, you're allowed to make batim. You're allowed to make all of these boxes by forming the vertical and the horizontal. But what does Abyosi say? He says you can't. But what could you do? So that's Machlokes. One says you can make at least one direction, shtiva lo erev. Another one says you can't do that even. All you can do is that if it's already set up, you're allowed to tie it. That's what you're allowed to do. Machlokes is what Abyosi holds.
What does when you say weave? Because you're just putting it. You're doing everything by hand. You're not weaving.
That's the actual. I'm saying that's the actual weaving. You're right, but that weave. What does weaving mean? Weaving means that you have strings in one way and you go back and forth. That's when you want to make a cloth.
Okay, right.
Yeah, it's like a very loose, very coarse weaving that you put the one direction on the bed and then you put that
by hand.
Yeah. Weaving in those days also was by hand.
Oh, by hand.
In those days, you used to weave by hand also. Okay, but you're right.
Moshe's talking about we hadn't set the Shabbos about a loom.
Yeah, there's a loom. So here also, but that's the point. You go back here also, you go back and forth, in and out. Okay, but that's the point that you're going in and out and you're making the crisscross. So that's Machlokes. Tanna Kama holds you're allowed to. Rabbi Yossi holds that you're not allowed to. But what are you allowed to do? Either he holds you're allowed to make one direction, put on one direction only, And the other mandam holds that you're allowed to only stretch it out if it's there already. Meisvei, Akasha from a brisa, and we're going to try to show. Let's see what we're going to try to show. The brisa brings the same thing, the same two opinions, and the third opinion also. That's why we're going to see the brisa more than the Mishnah. The Mishnah brought two opinions. One was Masargin, was Nafka Matchin, and the brisa is going to be a third opinion. Meisvei, Masargin is Samita, Vein Sech Lama Shem Matchin, the Rav Meir. Rav Meir is the Tanakam of our Mishnah, and he says you could even be Masarik. Surely you could be Mamatech, but Masargin is even more. We came out, Masargin means you can make both directions, fine. Rav Yossi says no, only Mamatchin, that's the same thing as it says in our Mishnah, that only Mamatchin, not Masargin, Avalom Masargin. What does that mean? We have machlokas now. What Mamatchin mean? Does it mean one direction? Does it mean only making a taut? This is what it says more that we didn't have yet. It's a third opinion. That's even more machlokas than Rav Yossi. You can't do anything. You can't do Mamatchin even. And that the Gemara is not difficulty. Is anybody can hold? You can't make a taut. The Gemara doesn't understand that why you can make a taut. To say that you can't put any new ropes, even one direction, that the Gemara can tolerate. That there's somebody out there that holds you can't do that. But to say that you're not allowed to make it taut, everything's there, you just want to make it taut. Is there a reason you shouldn't be able to do that? If the word Mamatchin means you can make one direction of ropes, so then it could be possible that somebody could say no. Yeshamim will say you're not allowed to even do that. If the only thing Rav Yossi permitted was to make it taut, everything's there already, and you're just making it taut, and then now somebody says you're not allowed to even do that. Is it possible to say that you're not allowed to even do that? Why not? And the Gemara says no. The Gemara doesn't. It's not scared of that. Yes, it's possible that somebody holds you're not allowed to even make it taut. And since it's able to fill it up, what does that mean? You have a bed that's very loose. You have the ropes over there. Shti, Erev, you have vertical, horizontal, but it's very loose, and you can't put a mattress on that because you're going to be sleeping like what is that called, on the floor, or you'll be a hammock. It doesn't matter. I mean, once there's something straight. So the Gemara says, the Gemara says, is it possible that's not called Sarach HaMoed? You're not allowed to do that. So the Gemara says, no, it's not so terrible. You fill it up until it's level. Put in blankets in there, whatever you need, until it becomes level, and then put your mattress on top. So since it's possible, so we're not going to be lenient to be able to do that. It's considered doing Malacha and Chol HaMoed, and it's not so necessary because you can figure out how to fill it up in a way that you'll have a straight back. So we're not going to be Meko. So as far as the halacha, there seems to be, what do we have? Are we going to be Machman like Rav Yossi? That's what I'm not sure how we pass on this thing. It doesn't happen to us too much. Baruch Hashem, we also don't have this system of beds. But let's see. I didn't look at the halacha over here, but if we could just tell from any letters that we have in the Mishnah over here. It sounds like we pass like Tanakama. They leave in Masargin, which we came out the most lenient. The Masargin means you can even put both directions on. Also, we're not going to be machman like Rav Yossi. Sometimes we do say halachas like Rav Yossi against Rav Meir usually, but I don't know. Here it seems to say that leniency, that you would be able to put both directions. Rav Yossi was machmer, maybe only one direction, maybe only to make it taut. Someone else was machmer not even to do that. And if we make it like Tanakam, that would mean you would be allowed to make both directions in order to put the mattress on top of it. Okay, if that's good, we continue, and we're up to the next Mishnah. Now these things again, these are old-time kalim, so we don't have this thing anymore. But we're talking about an oven of once upon a time and a mill that they would grind wheat with to make flour. So Tanakama says, that you're allowed to make them. You're allowed to erect them and make them. So it's going to obviously. I mean, the Gemara is going to say later on. It's talking about it's Sarach HaMoed. You need it for the moed, and it's possible to use it. So whatever. So is it considered a ma'aseh uman? Nowadays, to make an oven is surely a ma'aseh uman. So we're not going to permit it. I think the pashas will be, if you talk about our ovens, you're not allowed to make an oven. But in those days,
it's very complicated.
What?
Can you fix
an oven? So I think that'll be the same thing of ma'aseh uman. If you need a professional to do it, if it's something you're not to do by yourself, that it's a small thing, right. So then maybe you'd be allowed to do it. But if it's a ma'aseh uman, you have to call the technicians. I think you wouldn't be allowed to. So then I would think that's a ma'aseh uman. You're not allowed to do Sarach HaMoed. I'm just going to regular kolalim that the poskim got, even though the Mishnayos are not so simple. The Mishnah could have, if it's so simple, it could have just said 5 kolalim about Hilchos Chol HaMoed, then you could have closed the Masechta. But it doesn't. So it's pretty problematic that the poskim they didn't know what to do because the Mishnah says a lot of cases we don't know how to apply them. So the poskim say they brought the Rishonim. They already extracted from the Mishnah's cases some kind of klolim, and then we only use the klolim. So difficult. But it does say what the Mishnah says that you're allowed, in those days you'd be allowed to make an oven. The kiraim is also kind of an oven. We had that tanur is kind of a slanty oven in a way that it gets very hot. The bottom is bigger and the top gets more intense heat. And the kiraim is a place. What do we have? A kupach in the kiraim. Kiraim is enough place to put 2 pots kupach, it doesn't say over here, but okay. But the point is to say that you're allowed to make the oven. How did they made it? They probably took mud and clay, whatever they made that box. What was the whole oven in those days? They made a box, and then they would be able to put the fire into it and the pot on top or inside. So you're allowed to do that on moed. The Pasha says it's going to be a ma'aser hedyot, and it's a sarach moed. I guess that's the pshat. And also rechaim, making a mill. We'll see more about a mill. Rabbi Yehuda Omer,
A mill more, even though it's not so complicated, but it's a big avoda.
you take two stones. You take those two stones, one on top of the other, and one it'd have to be like the right size stones, round stones, whatever it's going to be. And then you would pull one around, turn one around the other, and you put the wheat in between, and that's how it would grind the wheat. So it says you're allowed to make it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, but it also has to be not a maisuman. All these things that the Pasha says it has to be not a maisuman. It isn't so simple because these things, if you ask me, I don't know, I wasn't there at the time, but I think like you have to be a pretty maisuman to make these kind of things. It doesn't seem like an amateur thing. I don't know. I'm just saying that the Mishnah says you're allowed to do it. The post can really say that it's very difficult. Again, throughout the Masechta, it's a difficult Masechta halachically because if it would be so simple, then the Mishnah wouldn't have to give all the cases. But the post can have no choice. So each time they take whatever the case it is, and they mold it in order to fit. They shape it to fit into the mold. That if it's a ma'aser hedyot, it's mutal tzarich hamoed. If it's a ma'aser uman, it's aser. So it's very simple then. But the cases, you're running so many cases, and always you have to fix the cases to fit into the mold. But the Pashas is not like that. I'm not saying the Pashas, if we know more, it seems that each halacha, the Chachamim decided if it's mutter and aser, and it wouldn't be so simple just to say that a ma'aser uman is aser. But the poskim themselves say that we don't know what to do, so we just go with the klolim that maybe exist. But it seems that the Mishnah they meant more than just those dry klolim. Anyway, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ein mechabshin es rechaim betchila. The word mechabshin, the Gemara is going to talk about what this word mechabshin means. That's going to be the sugya now. But the Yehuda says you may not be mechabish a mill betchila for the first time. We'll see soon about if it's an old one and you have to do it again. That's going to be the sugya in the Gemara also. But we don't even know the translation yet. What does it mean ein mechabshin? You're not allowed to be mechabshin a rechaim. A rechaim means a mill, but what do you do about mechabshin? My mechabshin, what does that word mean? So that's the machlokus over here. Machlokus, what that means. The first one, the Yomar says that it means menake rechai, which they say that you have to have friction between the top stone and the bottom stone. So you have to make chisel on it, whatever, until it becomes like a traction. When you're going to rub one against the other, there's going to be friction, and the wheat that's going to fall in between is going to get ground up. So if it's smooth, you have two smooth stones, so then it doesn't do much. So menake rechai would mean to make that friction, to traction, grooves, make grooves in it. Right, good. Basena would mean how do you get the wheat into you have these two stones that are turning around each other. You have to have a hole in the top stone that you put the wheat over there, and then it gets caught in, then it gets ground up. If you don't have that hole, how are you going to get the wheat in between? So that means to make that hole. Meisvei, the more is the kasha. What the kasha is going to be in short, it's going to be a couple of lines, but the kasha is going to be that it says it's possible this thing also in an old mill, not only in a new mill, even in an old mill. And the kasha is going to be, how do you have an old mill without this basena? If it doesn't have the hole in which the chute in which you're going to be able to put the wheat in, you could never have used it. So that's going to be a proof, the horror, that it means that you had the grooves that they got smoothened out. So then it's possible you have to redo it again. You have to refreshen it by making grooves again. But if it didn't have a hole, it was never able to be used. That's the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara is going to try to prove in the following brayso. So what the real pshat is. Does it mean to make these grooves and to make it friction, or does it mean the hole that you put the wheat into? It says in the brayso, that's so far the same that it says in our Mishnah. You're allowed to make the oven. So that's the machlokes we don't know too much about. Machlokes, if you're allowed to do the finishing touches, whatever that means, that you're allowed to make it like the basic thing, but you're not allowed to do the gemar, which I don't know what that means. What's exactly the gemar? But we don't know much about that. The Gemara is not going to go into that part of the machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Lezer, it seems like, here it's talking about a rechaim. It doesn't say, even though it says Tana v'kirayim, it must be talking about a rechaim also, a mill, and it says that you're allowed to erect a new one, and you're allowed to be mechabish an old one. Like he says in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says you're not allowed to be mechabish a new one, but chila. But here it says that an old one you would be allowed to. The yeshomrim ein mechabshin kolik, you're not allowed to keep this kapshin. You can't even do it even on an old one. Anyway, what do we see? That it's possible. It's possible. Not that if it's mutter or not, that's a machlokis, but it is possible to have an old mill which needs mechabshin. It needs this tikkun. Now, what is that? If the word mechabshin means that you're making it more grooves and all that, it should grind better. That makes sense. That there was an old one. First, it had grooves, and then by milling, so it got rubbed out and it gets smooth, and that's not good anymore. You have to do it again. Fine, it makes sense. If it means the hole in which you put the wheat into, how is it possible to have an old one that doesn't have one? It doesn't get rubbed out. It doesn't disappear. If you had a hole, it's still there. So if you ever used it before, if it's old, it must be that it has a hole. How could you have an old one that never had a shoot? The answer is, you're right. It's true that it has it, but the question is, you want to make it bigger. It was a small hole and it was usable, but you want to make it bigger. That's my focus. If it was once used already, and now you just want to make the hole bigger, is a mutter or not. So you still leave the machlokas. Doesn't mean this thing about making the grooves in order that it should be more friction, or does it mean making the hole bigger, as the Gemara explains, or making the hole for the first time? To make it bigger, I allowed to make it bigger. I allowed to make it bigger. Okay, yeah, you're right. I allowed to make it bigger. He passed by somebody's house, whatever. He heard that there was a person who was doing this act of an akir. He was making grooves in his mill in order to make it grind better. On Chol HaMoed, he was very upset. He cursed. Who is this person who's doing Machal Yantif? His body should be mechulal. It's like some kind of curse on him because he's being mechal chol hamoed. Why did he consider it mechal chol hamoed? Because he holds savalok yesh omrim. He held like the yesh omrim that says ein mechabshin kol liquor. If you hold that you're allowed to be mechabish an old one, there was a question over here, right? That says that mechabshin is sayishana. The question was, are you allowed to be mechabish an old one? But a new one you're not allowed to. The question was an old one. And he heard somebody that was mechabish, he cursed him. It must be that he held that it's susser, absolutely. Or else if it would have been mutter, it could be that was an old one. So he held that it's susser. That's why. But it's a kasha maybe, because even he holds that it's susser, there are those who hold that it's mutter. Maybe he was maybe he was the rov, so the paskin over there not allowed to do it. He told everybody. So someone was going to was being mechal chol hamoed, so he gave him a klala. He says you aren't allowed to. No krin. That probably he holds that the pshat is, like we said, bas eina, but just to make the grooves, he held that it was mutter, and that's the machlokis. These amurim, and he's posting that it only means that you're not allowed to make the hole, but you would be allowed to be menaker, or at least be menaker or yeshana, like it says here. That even if it means you're not allowed to do it to a new one, but he holds that to an old one, you would be allowed to. He doesn't say dafka yeshana. He just says you're allowed to. So it could be holds even a new one. Okay, we'll leave it. We leave that. It isn't so relative nowadays. The application doesn't happen. It continues now. It could be he's still talking. Mishum Rav Meir or Mishum Rav Beinu Amar. So they take out the word afilu. Sus sharochi b'alav v'chamor sharochi b'alav mutter. They changed the word umutter to mutter. Mutter leave also penayim v'chol shel moed. So again, this doesn't have such relevance. We don't have horses and donkeys. But the question was here: if you're allowed to trim the nails, I get the hooves, whatever that of chol moed. These animals that when they walk, they have to have treatment sometimes, the pedicure. So are you allowed to do that? So he says that the ones that use for riding, Tesha says also might apply also to making horseshoes, things like that, making it doing whatever you need in order to be able to walk better. So here it says that you would be the ones that you use for riding, you would be allowed to trim their nails. And but if it's only a chamor, it's not used for riding. It's used for pulling the mill. You have all kinds of mill. You have a hand mill, you have a water mill, you also have a donkey mill. You have a mill that goes around in a circle, and you have a donkey attached to it, and he walks around, and that's how he mills. And if that donkey needs some kind of trimming on his hooves, that it says you're not allowed to. And Rashi says the reason is because he's not running around; he's just going around in a circle. You're not making so much wheat. You're not doing mass production. That's what you need for Chol HaMoed. So that's enough. It's okay. He'll make it around a couple of times that he has to go, even if he doesn't have great walking sneakers, but it's okay. He'll be able to do it like that also. But Rav Yehuda Shori l'mishkal tufrei l'cham v'derechai. He holds that it's mutter also. The word tufrei is the tzipor. The mishkal is lito tzipor of a chamor v'chaim. You are allowed to. So that's about, everyone holds that if it's a riding donkey or horse, you are allowed to. And Tosfos here just talks about here's Tosfos is barzalim. If you're allowed to make if you're allowed to take care of the horseshoes on Chol HaMoed. That was the application. Okay, but we don't have either one of them nowadays. The question might be, he talks about Russia over here, Russia, whatever. If you have cement or if you have earth that they walk on, whatever the case would be, the question nowadays would be if you're allowed to fix your car, and that's going to be the question nowadays. And I think the hard would boil down again. The poskim are going to say, if it's a ma'aser hedyot, it's okay. Probably things you know how to do by yourself. If you pick up the hood, you know whatever you have to do over there. But if you have to go to the Uman, then probably you're not allowed to.
Can you give it to a guy too?
I think not. I think also not.
Good.
I think also not. Okay, I don't know the applications. We have to see more, but we'll see. Maybe Hilchos Chol Hamoed. After we finish the Masechta, maybe we should dedicate some time before Yom to Hilchos Chol Hamoed. And usually the poskim, they're stuck, and they say usually that's going to be the rules that Ma'aseh Hediot to Tzarech Hamoed is mutter. You have to have two conditions in order to be permissible: that it's an amateur thing and it's for the Moed. You're not allowed to do even Ma'aseh Hediot if it's for after the Moed, and you can't do a Ma'aseh even if it's for the Moed. But it's not so comfortable to say such a plain thing because you go on case after case. And it doesn't seem so simple. The Gemara wouldn't have to be so elaborate with all the cases. So I don't know. And I think if Shlomo Zalman says that, it's hard to know. But the Gemara itself says that the Hilchos Moed Akura is saying you're not allowed to work. You can't make any applications one to the other. You can't make any comparisons. Each one is on its own. Chazal determined each thing. And our cases nowadays, our situations much different than their situation. And if you're not allowed to make any comparisons, how are we supposed to learn anything? So the poskim does go very dry. Ma'aseh Hediot and Tzarech Hamoed. So it's hard to learn from the Gemara's examples. The Gemara continues, second line.
I think you should break down during
Well, I was thinking the same thing because people go to the lake with, I'm thinking America, right? If people go to play fueling.
That's okay.
And you get broke and you.
If it's a davar of it, if you're stuck someplace, it also might be you have to davar of it. If something is going to be ruined and a loss, whatever it might be, if you're stuck on the road, I imagine you're allowed to get it fixed in order to get home. These kind of things I can't say. I'm not paskening, but those are usually the clothing that they work with, and Sarachim. The Brisa continue. I think this is Rav Yehuda, not a Brisa. Rav Yehuda is talking. So he says you're allowed to take cut the nails of the donkey of a mill, and he goes further. More things you're allowed to do. Well, I put a little period just to talk about because we spoke about the Chamer de Rechaya, but we're continuing. Also, look, Rechaya, you're allowed to be Ma'amid Rechayim, which is what the Mishnah said. You're allowed to be Ma'amid Rechayim. You're allowed to put together the mill. Or the Mivnei Rechaya to build it. That sounds like you have to even do some building also besides just erecting it, even to build it. Or the Mivnei Amas Rechaya. Amas Rechaya sometimes means the top stone. The top stone that's riding is called the Amas Rechaya. Some say Rashi has another pshat, or some say another pshat over here that maybe it means the. Okay, I see only one pshat over here. Rashi says it means the bottom. The bottom stone. Well, not the bottom stone, the wood, like the stage, the platform that the mill is on. Like I said, the Rechai, Rashi says, means to put the two stones on top of each other. And Amas Rechai means the wood that the Rechaim is built upon, like the stage that it's upon.
They switch places. Rashi's on the left and now.
Oh, it always depends. The middle on the Amud Beis, Amud Aleph. Now we're on the Amud Beis. So Amud Beis, yeah. And on the screen, you forget about that. But on the Gemara, you see it. Okay. Or the Mivnei Uraya. Uraya, Rashi says, means like a stable. So I don't know why it should be mutter. It doesn't explain why should it be mutter. If you need it for moed, you need it for the moed. Is that the case? I guess in places they probably will say that if you don't need it for the moed, why should it be mutter? So it must be that it's a tzorach moed. Okay. The next Gemara, Rabbi Shara l'sruke susya, about to comb the horse. Why should you be able to comb the horse? What is the horse needed for? Anybody? Anybody familiar with horses? What's the purpose of combing the horse?
Combing.
Combing.
You want to sell it?
Combing a horse, right? It's like combing anything. It's
Just for beauty, or it has some kind of benefit?
Maybe cleanliness also.
Cleanliness, sort of. You can get off the fleas. I'm not sure. Or the mivnei are akarfita. Rashi says.
Here it says that it looks permissible. It looks presentable on Hol Moed.
Just for looks, just cosmetics, also permissible. Okay. And then Rashi says the mivnei akarfita means the feeding bowl for the animals. You're allowed to build that also.
Oh, sure.
Well, the mivnei itztava, some kind of a platform also, and Rashi says binyan avanim. So it's not clear what is it. What is the purpose of this thing? You're allowed to make a platform. Why should you be allowed to make a platform? It doesn't say what it's used for even. So a little bit vague these cases. The Gemara continues. This is a very general halacha. Now that's going to be applications. Rava permitted to let blood. Letting blood was a refuah at one time. Nowadays they don't let blood only for giving blood, for donating blood. But in those days it was considered a refuah to let blood for people and for also animals. So he says you're allowed to do that. And the Gemara says this is a general law, it's not a particular thing. All refuah is mutter for an animal. There's a advice that supports you. You're allowed to let blood, and you don't hold back any kind of a healing for animals. You're allowed to do all healing. Surely for people also. You're allowed to do anything you need, and there's no ism malacha. Okay, but the question on Shabbos, let's say not allowed to. Shabbos, you can't do malacha on Shabbos or Yom Tov also. You can't do malacha in order to heal the animal. But on Chol Hamoed, you are allowed to. You're not making the animal suffer. That's the question of getting them out of suffering.
suffering.
Yeah, okay, but you're not allowed to do malacha for that. Even for a human suffering, it isn't so simple. You're allowed to do malacha. only if it's sekonos tefashis. And animal sekonos tefashis is not a reason to do malacha. On Chol Hamoed, you're allowed to do malacha that whatever is necessary for the refu of the animal. That's the only one that's really like a cloud. Here's a cloud. It sounds, even if it's not a davar, the animal's not going to die. There's no issue refu. The veterinarian could be open regular business on Chol Hamoed. Rava Shara, this also, next Gemara, I think also is applicable, which I think is important. Again, with the cloud, it's pretty easy. Rava Shara, the Kiskuse Kirmi. My time of my Sehedya. I'm Rav Yitzchak Bar Arami. I'm Rav Yitzchak. Yeah, we'll get to it. I'm going to translate, just I wanted to compare the other one. I'm Rav Yitzchak Bar Arami. I'm Rav Yitzchak. Kiturei Biri Asa. My time of my Sehedya. The Gemara compares Kiskuse Kirma and Kiturei Biri. This is Mutter, this is Asa. The one that's Mutter is because it's a Maisa Hedyot. The one that's Asa is because it's a Maisa Uman. And I think the simple translation would mean to iron, in the home iron, that you're allowed to iron things on Shabbat, on Chol Hamoed, because it's a Maisa Hedyot, then it's a Tzarech Hamoed. But you're not allowed to give it to the cleaners. You can't give it to the professional because that's a Maisa Uman. Rashi seems to say that. Rashi says Kiskuse Gihutz, that's permissible, it says, and that's Maisa Hedyot, he says, so it's Mutter. And Kiturei Biri, so whatever the case is, some say that it means some kind of a professional kind of a pressing. You give it to the launderer that's going to make it professionally pressed, that's Asa. So I think that's Allah Maisa also, that you're allowed to iron on Chol Hamoed because it's considered a Maisa Hedyot. With the regular cloth, it fits very well. It's a Maisa Hedyot, it's mutter. Nowadays, even if you have these Kitor, it's also considered steam irons. It's also considered, in those days, once upon a time, the steam iron was the professional one. Now, that's not professional. Everyone has that already now. But whatever is professional is us. So you're allowed to do things like that. It's a Maisa Hedyot. You're not allowed to do a Maisa Uman.
Excuse me, Rebbe.
Yes, please.
Did I misunderstand? I thought you were saying we don't give refuah to animals on Chol Hamoed, but it says ein moni, on moni. We do give.
You don't hold back.
You don't hold back refuah.
You're allowed to do all refuah. You're allowed to do all refuah for an animal Chol Hamoed.
Okay, I thought that before you said that you don't do that. Or
no,
we were talking about Shabbos.
I'm sorry. Maybe it wasn't heard. The question over here was asked if on Shabbos. So I just said that on Shabbos you're not allowed to. But on
on Shabbos, but this is talking about Chol Hamoed that you're allowed to. You don't withhold.
Right.
Very good.
Right. Well, this wasn't audible. The one who asked the question here, it wasn't audible. The next Gemara is a series of Gemara that all say the same idea, that there's certain acts. I tried to make it a little bit colorful, and they have the yellow is the case, the green is mutter, the red is asa, and all the reds are going to be the same thing. Adaita da'ara asa. That you're not, if you could be doing something that depends what you're doing it for. What's your intention? If your intention is in order to improve the ground, it's going to be asa. And you see that again and again. Adaita da'ara asa, adaita da'ara asa, adaita da'ara asa, adaita the dikla asa. The dikla is the palm tree. But if you're doing it for a different reason, so then it's going to be mutter. That's the sort of the Gemara coming up and doing the same act, but it depends what you're doing. The Gemara is going to say the act a little bit is going to show what your intention is. Amar Rabba, man the maskil ara. Someone's taking away the stones from the ground. He's picking up the stones. Or not the stones, but I take it back. He's taking away the mounds. What's the word here? It says,
you have obstacles.
Obstacle. Take away the obstacles from the ground. So it depends what he's doing it for. Adai to the Beidori Shari. Adai to the Ara. If he's doing it because he wants to make the ground smooth, in order he should have a good threshing floor. He needs a threshing floor. And threshing, you're allowed to thresh what you need on Chol Hamoed. That's okay. And he needs an even floor. So he has mounds. So he takes he smoothens it out. That's okay. But if he's taking away the obstacles in order to make the ground better, he's improving the ground. That's not allowed to do Chol Hamoed. And that's also. So if he does it in the purpose of making a bedori is a threshing floor, then it's mutter. But if he's doing it in order to improve the ground, then it's also. Hey Chidami, what is the way we could see that he does it for to straighten out the ground for a threshing floor, which is mutter, or he's doing it to improve the ground? So here the gears, so they changed a little bit around. Mulya b'mulya, natsa b'natsa, adaita de, they changed the gears here. Adaita de ara, they changed it. And but shakal mulya v'shada b'natsa, then it's adaita de beidori. So these two words they change around. So the Bach does that, and that's what the word reading is. So a mulya and a natsa, one is a mound and one is a ditch. So if you take the mound and put it on top of another mound, like it says mulya b'mulya and natsa b'natsa, you take a ditch and make a bigger ditch out of the ditch. So then you're not smoothing out the ground. Then you're doing it for the ground, like you just it's tilling the ground. You're just like plowing. So then it's asr. But shakal mulya v'shada b'natsa, you take the mound and put it into the ditch. That means that you're doing it adaita the beidori. Then you're doing it in order to straighten out the ground, and it's mutter. Next case, Amar Rava, Haiman de zachi zichi. So this means it seems to be that he's taking the twigs. He wants to collect twigs. So what's he doing it for? Does he want adaita the CV? Sure. If he wants the wood, he's doing it because he wants the wood. Then it's money. You gotta take the wood. You want whatever you're using it for. You want to make a fire. But adaita the ara. So if he's doing it in order to clean off the ground, then you're not allowed to do it. How can we tell what he's doing it for? If he only takes the big ones, you want the ones that are sizable enough that he would use them. Then and he leaves the small ones. Then he's doing it for the wood, then it's mutter. But if he takes the big and the small, that means that he's doing it in order to clean the ground. Then you're not allowed to do it. Next case, he opens up water. He lets water coming into his land. So it depends what he's doing it for. If he's doing it for the fish, the Gemara is going to say sometimes you have a canal and you open up, the water should come in and it goes out the other end. And on the way, you catch the fish. Either the point is that when the water goes out, so then the fish are left and you could just pick them up and you can have supper. But if you do it that the water doesn't, you don't let the water out, so then the land gets filled up with water, so then it's also you're doing it for the ground. And it works. If he opens up both entrances, that both gates, the word Babi is gates, one on top, one higher up, one lower down, and the water comes in one and goes out the other, then you're doing it in order to catch the fish. That's mutter. But Pasachad Baba, if you only open up one entry at the water entry, but you don't let the water go out, then you're doing it in order that the ground should get water, and that's also. Another similar case, the fourth similar case, you are taking off the branches off the palm tree. You're cutting the palm tree branches. So it depends what you're doing it for. If you're doing it because you want to use it for the animals, what use these animals? And it seems that these branches were still soft and they're still edible for animals, so you could use it for animal food. So it depends. What are you doing it for? Are you doing it for the animal food, or are you doing it in order to improve the tree? So if you're doing it for the animals, it's mutter. If you're doing it for the tree, it's also. How can we tell? If you're taking all the branches on one side, you're not being marked to make it even symmetrical on both sides. So then you take it all from one side. So that means you're doing it for animals. You're not doing it for the tree. But if you take it from both sides, that means you're doing it in order to improve the tree, and that's us. So the same yisod, we have 4 examples of the same yisod, that if you're doing something which we see from the way you're doing it, that you're not doing it for the improvement of the ground or the tree, then it's mutter. But if the way you're doing it, it shows you're doing it for the ground or the improvement of the tree, then it's asam cholamoy. The Amar Rava, Hani Tamri Tochlan. I just didn't finish marking it over here. There's still more to mark up, but I didn't go further. Amar Rava, Hani Tamri Tochlani. So some kinds of dates. Tochlani, Rashi says, Tomorrow Shalom is Bashvul called Sarkon. Dates that did not yet ripen. So, Migzirinu Shari, you're allowed to cut them off the tree. But Maitzinu Asa, but you're not allowed to squeeze them in order to get out the juice. So here Rashi says, you're going to be eating it on Yantif. You cut it off the tree, and then you're going to be eating it, but on Yantif it's going to be ready to eat. So it's mutter because you're doing it for Yantif. You're cholamoid for Yantif. But Maitzinu Asa, but then you're not allowed to press them. Rashi says, Maitzinu Lakovshan, the Masa Motzi Lecha Shabahen Lachutz Asa, because you're not going to be using it for cholamoid. That's for a later date. When you're taking out the juice, Rashi says that it's going to become eventually dried dates, timukim, so then it's not going to be used for Yantif. So then it's Asa. So whatever you have to do in order to be able to use it for Yantif is mutter. Whatever you're going to be used for after Yantif is Asa. That's what Rava says. Inside, Ani Tami Tuchlani, these unripe dates, Migzirinu Shari, you're allowed to cut them off the tree, and whatever you have to do necessary in order to be able to eat it on Cholamoid or Yantif. But Maitzinu Asa, but to press them to get the juice out, that's Asa, because you're not going to be using it for moed. It's only a part of the process of drying them out that you're not allowed to do. Once you cut it off the tree and you're not going to press it to get the juice out, they're going to become wormy. So that's davar ovid. Davar ovid is also mutter. So there are two heter comes up over here. Davar ovid we had at the beginning of the Masechta. Besides Tzorach HaMoed, which is mutter a ma'aser hedyot, but also something which is going to be a financial loss also was a heter. So here, since you're allowed to cut it off because you want to eat them, and now if you have leftover and you're not going to press them to get the juice out, they're going to become wormy. So it's a davar ovid. That's also permissible. The word prakmatia means schora, like merchandise. If you have lost merchandise that's going to get lost, it's going to get destroyed. So it's mutter to save it, even though you're doing malacha. The Gemara continues, a new halacha, the Amar Rava, pragmatic culture was, you're not allowed to do business. You're not allowed to do business. Besides doing work, you're also not allowed to do business. You can't do buying and selling. Buying and selling, trading is also asar and cholamoid. It's also considered doing work. most people's businesses, of course, they have all kinds of businesses, but many people, their business is just buying and selling. You might think they're not doing any work. I'm just buying and selling. No, Katmati culture was any kind of a buying and selling is also awesome. But if it's going to be a financial loss, if you don't do malacha and you don't do this trading, then it's going to be mutter. The Gemara says the example of the davar ovid. L'chora means the Gemara is not going to say an example. I think if he has customers now and he's not going to have that kind of a customer later, maybe it's called davar ovid. The Gemara says a story over here that maybe is saying the halacha, maybe
I lost you right when you said there's not an example. I think after that I lost for a minute.
Okay. The next thing the Gemara is going to say, I'm not sure if it's an example of what's usher to do because it's not allowed to do business, or it's an example of something which would be permissible, but it's going to be a chasidus of some sort, and it's going to say the schar, the reward that Hashem orchestrated for somebody who was machmir. We'll see the story and see what it says, and two ways to translate it. Ravina had a business that some kind of an ASIC, some kind of a trading that he could have made, that could have been sold for 6,000, whatever, 6,000 dinner, whatever it was. And he did it, and he could have done it in a Chol Hamoed. He had opportunity to do it in a Chol Hamoed, he didn't. Now, does that mean that he did a chasidus, or that was the law, that you're not allowed to do business? I don't know. But whatever, the Gemara says, but he kept it waiting. Means he didn't sell it on Chol Hamoed, he waited to sell it until after Chol Hamoed. The Zavne betrayed Alpi, and he was able to sell it for 12,000. That he made double the profit that he could have made. So is the case saying that he would have been mutter, but he did a chasidus and Hashem gave him a reward that he got double the price, or does it mean that he did the halacha and he didn't lose out? He did the halacha that you're not allowed to do business, and it was not davar. So I can't tell from the case if it was considered davar. The post can do say that if there's a one-time opportunity, maybe even though it's not a loss, he can make profit after Chol Hamoed also. But the opportunity that he got now is like a big opportunity. Maybe they say maybe it's considered davar ovid, but anybody should ask a Rav if it comes up that if he gets like a one-time opportunity, is that considered davar ovid to get a better sale? But here the Gemara seems to say that he didn't do it either because it was usher or a chasidus maybe, and Hashem gave him double the price after the moed.
So he waited.
He waited, right? Shahaye. He made it wait to sell it till after the moed, then he sold it for 12,000, double the regular price. New story. I don't know how to pronounce it. He owed money. People owed him money. And he wanted to know if he's allowed to go collect it on Chol Hamoed. Is maybe the actual collection is considered maybe not the right thing to do, or he had to do malach in order to get there. So was he allowed to collect his debt? So yes, Ravashi, am I allowed to go to collect the money on Chol Hamoed? Amalei, so he told him, since now you could find them in Chol Hamoed, he knows where to find them. They're around. They're home in the sukkah. He got them, but another time they're not around. He's not able to find them. So it's considered a davar ovid. It's also considered like a davar ovid, and he's mutter. So it sounds here that you're not allowed to collect the debt only if it's going to be a davar ovid. I don't know if it means that the actual collection of the debt is the malacha, that you're not allowed to collect the debt. That's also considered like a business unless it's a davar ovid. That's probably the pshat. Or it means they have to do malach in order to get the collection. He had to go whatever on his horse. I don't know. But I think the question that the post can understand is that the actual collection, if it's unnecessary, so wait until after the moed. But if it's a davar ovid, you're not going to be able to get the money later on. Well, it's hard to get to them. So then it's a davar ovid and it's mutter also. Yes, please.
Now, that's the word here, akridus nuasa. What, I didn't get that word.
That's the name of a place. That's the name of a place.
I thought it was somebody who hated him from the word of Sinai.
No. Any Rashi here? Does Rashi tell us what that means? No, he just says Bosa. Less wasn't a Rashi, Bosa Mokum in that place. The people will hide him money in that place. So he was able to get. So yeah, it doesn't mean anything that we could learn from. Maybe there's some soul. There could be there's something they were doing over there, but I don't think. And aside it says looking above Mitzia over there, it's also brought down the same place, but Mitzia and Gimel. I don't know. The Gemara says on the bottom line, the Gemara brings another case that you see that if you have an opportunity, a one-time opportunity, also it's considered davar ovid. It says Holchem liyirid shel of goyim. Loken behema avodim ushvachos batem sodas ukramim because of malav rakos shalahen. The pnei shu kamas lo miyadan. That even though something this has to do with the goyim, getting things from the goyim, and usually we don't allow you to. But if you're going to be able to buy things from them in a way that you'll get it into Jewish hands, so then there's a special heter that even though we don't allow you to go to buy from goyim things that have to do with our sometimes, and maybe it looks like the Zara, but the heter is because it's considered matzal miyada. The fact that he's buying it from them, he's getting it from them, so he's saving it from the goyish hands. So there is such a heter considered like a davar of it over there also. So those are halachas about tilchas about the Zara, but the Gemara is making some kind of a comparison also tilchas chol hamoed that is considered a davar of it. The Gemara continues and more things about being mutter and chol hamoed, similar to our Mishnah about the Tanur, Kivayim, Rechaim. Rav Shaul l'chiyah barashi l'migdal uari b'chol moed. Rav permitted Chiyah bar Rashi to make a uhari. Rashi says uhari means some kind of nets. Chetzadin, bodagim, some kind of a nets, some kind of fish nets. He allowed them to make it on Chol HaMoed. I'm going to say again and again that it's probably a Ma'aseh Hediot L'Tzorech HaMoed. I don't know anything else. That we're not going to learn anything new from it. We're going to always put it back into our mold that a Ma'aseh Hediot L'Tzorech HaMoed is mutter. And sorry. Here the Gemara says that it's Ma'aseh. My time and Ma'aseh Hediot do. Aval Isli also. My time and Ma'aseh Umani. Here the Gemara itself divides that it's both of them L'Tzorech HaMoed and a Ma'aseh Hediot is mutter, a Ma'aseh Uman is also. So Rashi here says that the Isli is going to be bird nets. So the fish nets is only a Ma'aseh Hediot. The bird nets is a Ma'aseh Uman. Each thing according to its mitzvahs. But it doesn't have to be that way. But whatever the case was, that you're not allowed to do a Ma'aseh Hediot L'Tzorech HaMoed, but you're not allowed to do a Ma'aseh Uman. The next case, Rav Yehuda Shola Ami Tanura the Migdal Tanuri. This is a person who made the ovens. He's called Ami Tanura. So you're allowed to make a new oven. Again, it seems a little bit like it's a Ma'aseh Hediot. In the post can probably say it's a Ma'aseh Hediot. Well, the Rabbi Bar Isvi the Migdal Mahulta. Mahulta is going to be some kind of a sifter. Rashi says Mahulta is a sifter. That a Brisa says that you're not allowed to make a oven for the first time. It means that maybe you're allowed to fix one, but you're not allowed to make it for the first time. Lo kasha, can be mosachama, can be mosak shamim. So Rashi says that when you make this oven made out of clay, the ovens are not the way we have ovens nowadays. Not talking about a turbo and all these kind of fancy ones we have nowadays. That's nothing to do with the Gemara. But in the Gemara, they took clay and they made an oven. So it's mutter or it's aser. So it says b'mosachama is in the summer. Rashi says that in the summer it dries up. It dries out in a good way. It'll be usable for the moed. But in the winter, that it takes time until it dries out. The clay dries out, so it's not going to be usable. If it's not usable for the moed, so it's aser. Because you're not allowed to make it for after the moed. You're only allowed to make it when it's usable on chol hamoed. Ma'aseh Hediot L'Tzorech HaMoed. Okay. So again, I don't know what to say. The cloud seems to be simple. Ma'aseh Hediot L'Tzorech HaMoed, but it's not fair because then the moed wouldn't be so long about all that. But that's about all we could take out of it.
When do we have a regal or a chalamite that's in the Ma'aseh Hashem?
Yeah, we have Sukkot. We have Pesach and Sukkot. So Pesach and Shavuos is when it's a hot season. So then if you make it, the oven will dry out on Chol Hamoed. It takes a day or two, it'll be ready to use. But in this Tishrei time, so then it's already rainy season. It's possible that it won't be Sukkot, yeah. It rains sometimes. It depends. It depends. It's going to be moist weather. It's not going to. There's not going to be enough sun that it's going to be able to dry it out. That's what it seems to say. But yes, yeah, but it could be that it's not that it's even if it's nice weather, it's not raining, but it's not enough to dry out. It's not a hot sun that's going to be able to dry out the clay. Yes, everybody. Thank you and Shavua Tov.
Shavuot Tov. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Rebbe,